Traditional business, if you've got a track record, the traditional marketing approach works best. If you start up or don't have a track record, the planning and uncertainty approach seems to be less profitable, but also less likely to have significant losses. Yeah, I let you out early last time. This will teach you. So now I want to talk about sales forecasting. Every business plan and every marketing plan has to have a sales forecast. There's a saying in the sales profession that nothing happens in business until somebody sells something, and that's not entirely true. Nothing happens in business till somebody forecasts selling something. And we talked about this with everything that we've done. Every business activity starts out as a loss because you have to develop the product before you can sell it. And you have to have an anticipated sales outlet before you're going to take the risk of developing the product. So sales forecasting is important, again, for every business plan, every marketing plan, and typically it's the marketing area that's going to be responsible for developing the sales forecast because, again, as boundary spanners have a better understanding of customers, better understanding of the marketplace, and understanding of what our internal capabilities are. So definition of a sales forecast is an estimate of what sales will be in a defined future period. And the first thing I want to emphasize is it's an estimate. That's a fancy way of saying it's a guess. There's a lot of uncertainty in a sales forecast. Harvey Firestone was famous for saying that I can forecast sales right up to the number of back orders that I have in my factory. After that, I don't know. But recognizing that it's an estimate, that there's some uncertainty in it, you treat it like a market research issue. Is how much effort would you put into developing the forecast? It depends on how much is at stake and how much uncertainty there is in the forecast. In order to develop forecasts, there's some terminology that we need to just run through because we'll be using these to describe forecasts. So one of the things we look at is market size, sometimes called market potential. And this would be the upper limit for sales. If everybody in the target market bought one, what would sales be? Now you can look at sales in either terms of dollars or in terms of units. Which is better? And yes, this is a trick question, so go ahead and take a guess. It's dollars. Why? Yeah, so you got to pay for what you're going to build. Anybody vote for units? Nobody votes for units. Please, somebody vote for units so that I can make myself look smart. Yes, you're thinking units would be better. Why would units be better? Yeah, I heard what you said is because you need to know how many to produce and you need to gear up the logistics to be able to produce them. Very brilliant insight. And the truth of the matter is you need both. Let me give you a real-world example. I'm exaggerating the numbers for effect, but this has been true for the past 50 years. In the movie industry, box office sales, dollar sales, are up 10% over last year. Has it been a good year or a bad year for the movie industry? Good year. Sales are up, right? Unless they projected 20. Okay, that's it's not as good as it could have been, but it's better than a loss. Smart guy. In the movie industry, ticket sales are down 10%. Has it been a good year or a bad year for the movie industry? Bad year. Ticket sales are down. The reality is both are true. This has been consistent for years, is box office revenue is up, but the number of tickets sold is down. What does that tell you about the movie industry?
Prices are higher for tickets.
Is that prices are increasing, but attendance is decreasing. So the point is you need both to give you a more nuanced understanding of what the market is. The financial picture only gives you part of it. The physical product picture gives you part of it, and you need both to really understand what's going on. So another term that we use is sales potential, and that's just the market potential for your company. So if everybody in the target market bought one, that's the market potential, but I only sell in California. So if everybody in California bought one, that would be the potential for my company. And then market share is the proportion of the market captured by a single company. That means that you need to have an idea of what the market is, and that's usually expressed as a percentage or a ratio. Another term used in forecasting is the concept of relative market share. Market share tells how much of the market you have. Relative market share is an indicator of how strong your position is in the market. And the relative market share is the ratio of your market share compared to that of your largest competitor. So if your relative market share is 1, that means that your market share is the same as your largest competitor. What would that suggest about the competitive situation? It's probably going to be pretty intense. If the relative market share is 2, that means that your market share is twice as big as that of the largest competitor. That tells you a different situation for the market in terms of, and similarly, if your relative market share is 1/2 or 0.5, that means that your largest competitor is twice as big as you are. Again, that would suggest different strategies for the marketplace because you're not the market leader. Sales, dollars and units. And then a market factor. And a market factor is a made-up term that we use so that we can talk about market factors. And that's just, a market factor is something that you can measure that's related to demand in the marketplace. And I'll use this example, spark plugs, because I come from Toledo and that was the home of Champion spark plugs. How would you forecast the demand for spark plugs? Yeah, well, if you know how many cars are going to be sold, you have a pretty good idea of how many spark plugs are going to be sold, right? So a market factor for the spark plug industry would be car sales. Make sense? Because it's related to demand for spark plugs and it's something you can measure.